Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. So I'm currently at the airport. I just left, I'm currently about to leave Cleveland. I've been here for about a week for a convention, and I'm on my way home. And as it so happens, the hotel that I was staying at and the convention center that the conference was being held at was actually really close to Lake Erie, so one of the Great Lakes in Cleveland, Ohio. So I decided on the last and final day today that I was going to head over there and check it out. So what ended up happening was that my what? What ended up happening was all week I've been wanting to go, but it's been snowing or it's been cold or it's been bitingly cold. So I decided today, on the sunniest of all days, right in the mid 40s, low 50s, I decided to go and check it out after my lunch conference. So it was a beautiful experience. I was able to go to the pier. There was a cool breeze. It was really nice. And what ended up happening was that there was a flock of seagulls flying around the lake, diving down, flying up, going in circles, and making their patterns and their moves. And of course, in the water, there were sheaths of ice. So I don't know if you've ever been to the ocean or to the Great Lakes in the wintertime, but there are parts of the ocean that are frozen, and then there are other parts where the waves and the currents are still going. And underneath of the ice, on the surface of the lake, there is water flowing underneath. It's a very beautiful sight. And again, I saw the birds, the seagulls flying around, and I saw the blue sky, the sunny day, and the currents of the water. And as I was reflecting and sort of meditating on what I was seeing, it reminded me of two things. One is, a lot of times we humans compare ourselves to other creation, and we tend to compare ourselves to animals. So we will see a group of seagulls or a group of lions or a group of cats or dogs or whatever they may be, and we'll think, well, each one of us humans is different, and we're in a pack of a group of people, but we're all distinct and we have completely opposing wills, completely contradictory wills, completely contradictory intentions, and sometimes we're arguing with each other, sometimes we're fighting with each other, and we have individualized expectations of the world. We have individualistic perspectives. And you can see that same thing in the animal kingdom, if that's the way you want to look at it, right? Each of those seagulls is independent. They're flying on their own, inspiration. They're doing whatever they're doing. They're not all cooperating together as one cohesive whole. They're each unique individuals. But upon closer inspection, you'll notice that even among the animal kingdom, right, birds and dogs and cats and lions and whatever else we're talking about, they do have a community where they interact with each other, but they also obey their instincts, and they submit not only to God, but they submit to a greater order. They submit themselves and they establish relationships between themselves, work together towards accomplishing goals, and they support each other. So in the example of fish, you know that many small fish will swim together in a school of fish, and they're all going in the same direction. Yes, they're all individuals, but they cooperate and they participate together in harmony in order to accomplish their goal of scaring away the bigger predatory fish, right? So this was something that I was reflecting on as I was seeing the seagulls, and honestly, one of the most beautiful things about seeing the seagulls flying around the lake was their freedom, their lack of inhibition, their absolute joy in doing what they were doing. And I saw them; they were flapping their wings constantly, and then they would stop and just glide, and then they'd start flapping again and again, and then they would just glide. And there was such harmony that you could see in those seagulls. But one of the other things I was thinking about was that at the same level, we are creation, right? We are things that exist in this universe. But rather than comparing ourselves to animals, we could also compare ourselves to the water. The water of the lake is made up of infinite number of tiny droplets. But each of those droplets independently have no will, have no force, have no power. When you take a drop of water out of the lake, it doesn't have the power of the entire lake. The currents don't flow, the water doesn't flow, the waves don't rise. Nothing happens when you take a drop of water away from the group, from the whole of the lake. And each of those individual particles of water, each of those individual drops of water in the lake, they have their own characteristics. Like I mentioned, at the top of the water, some of them were frozen. Underneath, they were swirling. Towards the side, the currents were flowing. So all of these individual drops of water were part of a whole that was contributing and acting and doing things in harmony with each other. Even though they were doing different things and they had different qualities, some are hotter, some are colder, some are frozen, some are thawed, some are, different characteristics. All of the water, the great body of water, the lake, is a consistent whole. And if we see ourselves as humanity, more of a whole of people, a whole of humanity that are connected, that we are all doing different things, we have different characteristics, but at the end of the day, we are part of a cohesive whole that is doing something together. Whether we hope that we do or we don't, the reality is we're part of something greater than each individual. And I'm sure you've all heard of the divide and conquer, right? The number one strategy of how oppressors and destroyers and corrupt people will conquer and destroy. It's by divide and conquer. The more we see ourselves as individuals that are separate and that are conflicted and that are against each other, the more likely we are to cross each other, to betray each other, to sacrifice the greater good for our personal interests. But the more we see ourselves as a body of water, instead of a body of individuals who are just trying to, take care of number one, right? Take care of ourselves. Seeing ourselves as a body of water where each individual droplet, separate, is not able to fulfill the great power that we have when we are together. So that was my reflection on the water. And then I thought about it, and it's the same for the air. The air around us, the sky around us, is individual particles of oxygen and whatever else makes up the air in our atmosphere. Some of them are hotter, some of them are colder, some of them are certain elements, some of them are other elements. But the reality is all of the air together makes a cohesive whole that is greater than each individual segment or piece of gas or piece of air that's floating in the atmosphere. We are greater when we are united. And we are powerful when we are united, even though we are different. We are each different people with different ideas and different concerns. But the difference between the water and the air and humanity is that the water and the air submits to the will and the order of God. Whereas we humans sometimes submit to God's will and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we allow ourselves to align with what is our natural state, which in Arabic is called fitra, right? Our angelic nature, our imbued guidance that God has provided each and every one of us. Some of us yield in harmony to that nature, and some of us try to resist it. So this is an ability that the humans have, that the air doesn't have, and that the water doesn't have, and even the animals, the seagulls. They don't go beyond their nature. So these were some of the things that I was thinking about the unity of humanity and how we can most exemplify our nature. Sorry about the announcement. I'll pause. Anyway, some of the beauty of humanity is the ability to see ourselves as an element of nature that is in harmony with its nature, with its essence, and in cooperation with its other parts. So just like the water, the lake is so powerful when it's all together, and a drop removed from the ocean, from the lake, is so weak. We humans, in that same way, we gain so much strength by cooperating, even though we're different, even though we have different functions, even though we have different characteristics. By cooperating together, we're able to accomplish so much more. And that has a lot to do with even our own internal selves. And I really want to bring this home to when you, as a human being, right, when your mind and your heart and your soul are in sync and your body are in sync, you're able to accomplish so much more. But when your body is conflicted with your mind and your mind is conflicted with your emotions, there's disharmony inside of the internal human being. And guiding ourselves and aligning our hearts and our minds and our spirits and our bodies is such an essential task for humanity to learn to embrace that peace, to embrace that guidance, to embrace that harmony. And again, all of these things that I've been sharing in these other videos, things like getting inner peace, getting an objective understanding of what our mind is doing and our identity, and all of these things that go through our minds and that we have a tendency to stuff, to just ignore and squash rather than actually dealing with our emotions. Sometimes our mind wants one thing and our heart wants something else, and it takes effort to reconcile them, right? To make peace between the mind and the heart. But when we do it, we're able to yield and reach that harmony internally. And then, hopefully, God willing, we'll be able to build that harmony between people. But a house divided against itself doesn't stand. The reality is, if we're divided amongst ourselves internally, how can we align and congregate with others? We have to do that internal healing now. We have to do that internal healing and harmonizing within ourselves before we can build peace and along with other people. And one of the things that's a beauty of this life is that we can harmonize internally as we're harmonizing with others. But we can't harmonize with others without doing that internal work of harmonizing within ourselves. So I'm at the airport. I've got a little while longer I'll be here. Hopefully I'll be catching my flight in an hour or so. And until then, I would like to pass on a message of peace, love, and harmony. I hope that you're having an awesome day. I hope that you have a great weekend. And Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all.